As kids, it's easy to find your tribe, your clan, your gang or group when you're surrounded by your peers. Our Loud House, Little Rascals, Scoob and the gang. But then we transition to adulthood, and our days are filled with our day jobs, careers, the weekly grind. Striving for the American dream with the white picket fence, the 2.5 kids, and a dog. As men, we follow the stereotypes and gender roles and make it hard to connect and make friends outside of our family and our work lives. But how can we solve this mystery of making friends as adult males? On this episode of Three Dimensional Dads, we're exploring adult male friendships.
Three friends, all dads, exploring every dimension of being a geek. I'm Jay.
I'm Derek.
And I'm Ian.
And we're the Three-Dimensional Dads.
Hey.
What's up, friends?
Yeah, hey, friends.
Hey, friend. Yeah.
So this is pretty topical, right? I think we started this podcast kind of as an original podcast as a reaction to the pandemic, because there's always something that we like to do. And we found each other through common things. But something that doesn't get talked a lot about, I mean, even pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, right, is that I remember after I got my degree, I was in grad school, I was in college, right? We all went through high school, and you were always surrounded by your peers, and you had other things going on, social groups, things of that nature that you just always were surrounded by, and you had common interests with people. It was easy to make friends with your peers. So I remember after I got my degree from graduate school and I moved up here to New England, I didn't know anybody. I was taken out of, my not only my geographical area, but just the core group of people that I knew for basically the entirety of my livelihood. And when you move away from that, you move away from everything that you knew when you're growing up for. It was really difficult for me. I was just trying to essentially plant new roots someplace. And in doing that, it's hard to find, when you're 26, 27 years old, to make friends as a result of that.
Right. Yeah. I think, too, you get stuck in like these, you have your bubbles. You have like people at work that you see, you have your marriage, your kids, and then like, where do you meet new people? Like, it takes a lot of effort and time on top of things that it's like, yeah, where do you even, it used to be so easy.
Right.
It's like, yeah, I would be in bands or I'd be in something, and like there's be other people around exactly your age, exactly in college too. It's like exactly people just like me. I'm in my major that are studying the same things. It's like then you get into the real world and it's like, yeah, that just gets a lot harder.
Yeah, and your peer Ted could be like a 53-year-old and you're just this kid out of college, right? And you have nothing in common with them. It's like, how do you find commonality with, all of a sudden this new group that you get dropped into? Right.
Derek and I were in fraternities, and fraternities, like, you're prescribed friends. Like, here you go.
Yep.
Like, you're set to this group and you're bonded by, everything that the fraternity stands for. And then you're out of school and it's like, okay, well, now what? Right. And there's different ways to make friends.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a Freemason. So I have my brothers that way, my friends there. I have my synagogue group. But yeah, unless like you're actively searching for friends, how do you meet new friends? I mean, there's no app that's, there's no equivalent of like Tinder where it's like just for friends.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe people will end up that way from there, but I don't know. I've been married for so long that I never got to use it.
Yeah. Well, so if you just separate genders for a little bit, I think from that perspective, it's more difficult for men to make friends than it is for, I'm stereotyping, ladies to make friends. I feel that, and this is a historical context, right? Women were always in the parlor. They were always discussing social things. And it's just perceived, right, as men don't do some of those things. They don't open up emotionally. So, in doing some research for this episode, there's some common difficulties, at least, that's analyzed for like, why is it difficult for men in particular to make friends? Well, now just taking the context of age, I think nowadays, and you're seeing this post-pandemic, it's more difficult, I think, for younger people to actually move out of their parents' house. It's just harder and harder to afford to even rent nowadays and be on your own with a group of people. I can remember, at least when I went to graduate school, you'd split rent with, maybe 3 or 4 different people, and it could be no more than like $500. Now people are paying rents that are almost more astronomical than mortgages. So from that perspective, there's just people that could be embarrassed that they're still living at home with their parents. And that's just in itself, I mean, just a reason to kind of have apprehension of just reaching out to people. Another reason is that from the pandemic, a lot of people are just working remotely. So even now in this new, granted, there are some benefits of working remotely. You could be in your sweatpants all day. You can do your laundry, all of those things, but you're not getting that social interaction. You're just not getting interaction. You're not expanding even just your professional network, where you just could be interacting more and more with people, and then find the occasional like work buddy that you can have. Because I think we all do have like people that we, interact with work and we socialize with.
There was a time where there was this kind of teeter-totter for working at home. Like businesses were going to have to stop renting space for their companies because everyone was working at home. And companies, some saw drops in production with people at home, so they're bringing back people in the office now. But a lot of people are still working at home. My job, I can't do it, right? Because I'm in front of the kids all day, and teaching remote school is terrible. But Derek, you're doing your engineer thing, Ian, you're doing your tech thing, and that's you can do that at home. But I guess maybe working in the office has its perks. But you're right. If people are working at home, when are they getting out?
Right.
Well, and you don't have lunches. Mm-hmm. Like that's the next step up where you're like, hey, maybe we're going to have a friendship. You want to go grab lunch somewhere.
Yes.
So like doing a lunch break with somebody, and then there's the getting drinks after work kind of thing. And like, that's, I've had work friendships that blossomed into outside of work friendships. Then texting outside of work is like the next level up. But like, that's much harder to do when you're always remote. It's like, you're only somebody on a screen.
Right.
You can't go get lunch. Like, how do you make a next step to be a friend with somebody besides like chatting on Teams or something?
Yeah. Oh God, yes. Yeah. But Ian, it sounds like you have the playbook. Like my next version, my next step in our work friendship is to go out for drinks afterward.
Exactly. I make friends pretty easily. So yeah. So I got that. There's like, we were discussing before this too, that there's like this. I found in adult males that right now we have this. It might be post-pandemic, that there's like certain physical greetings. So it starts off with like a pound. So I feel like a lot of guys now, we start off with the pound, and then the three of us now that we're a little closer, we do like they kind of grab hands and you kind of like chest bump.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it turns into the hug.
Yeah. That's called the sup bro.
The sup bro into the chest bump.
Dude, bro.
And then sometimes, you do a pound, you're like, oh, we're too close for that. It goes in for the hug. Yep. It's like, so there are those different levels of like greeting is a thing where like physical intimacy with between adult males.
Right.
So I've noticed that's a thing that we've been,
and to jump into that stereotype, right? Men typically, we don't just share our emotions going on with each other, right? That's just something that we can easily convince ourselves that guys don't do. Oh, we're fine. I know I don't need anything. It's cool. I'm fine. My grandmother just died. I'm fine. Just like close person I know, my dog died. I'm fine. It's cool, bro. I don't need anything.
Well, yeah. There's a part of masculinity tied to that where it's like, no, I'm tough.
Yes,
I'm tough, and I'm I'm aggressive, and I can't be vulnerable.
Right.
If I seem as vulnerable, I'm weaker or I'm less than.
Yes, exactly. And we are afraid, I think, to share those emotions with other men because you could also be. It can go back to being bullied when you share emotions. You can revert back to like when you're that little kid of being bullied. You're afraid of being humiliated. And so that's why sometimes guys are just we would want to share our emotions with our partners, but not necessarily just other men friends. So those are some real reasons why just emotionally, like it's harder for guys to just go out and make friends. It's hard for us to just put ourselves out there in a lot of respects.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. And you mentioned too, Derek, like these transitions in life.
Yes.
So I feel like sometimes it's that timing. Like when I went from high school to college, I didn't know anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so college was a pretty lonely place at first before I like went and started doing bands or a cappella or something like got me out to find my people.
Yep.
But I had a couple weeks there at college where it's like in high school, I had so many friends.
Yeah.
And to suddenly go and just have no one to talk to. I am so extroverted and I need to make people laugh. And like that was a tough time. And then so I really had to push myself to go out and make friends. And then, that happened to me too with coming out to after college. It's like moving to a new area. That was a tough thing. We shared on our, Meet the Dads episode 1. how Jay and I met and how we had to kind of put in effort. My wife was looking out for me because we all kind of hit this tough time.
Matchmaker, make me a match, find me a
But
find.
it seems like the three of us though have had that moment where we went like, we need to make friends. We like friends. We're looking for that. And so there are these articles that I saw recently. One of the inspirations for this episode was these articles that say there's a friendship recession.
Yeah.
Or that like the statistics of close male friends for adult males for the 90s has gone from like having 5 close friends to like 1 or 2. So like the stats of this loneliness happening, it really affects your mental well-being. It really affects your physical well-being. Yeah. And I think the three of us have had those times where we connected with that article and went like, yes.
Oh, totally.
There are times where I went like, I suddenly don't have friends and I don't have anyone to talk to. And that's a hard thing to start going through life. And it's really difficult and isolating.
Yeah.
I found really that, I connected with some of those articles on the more academic level because I studied psychology in my undergrad, and I love learning about human behavior. And you never really think deeply about your friendships. Like when you're studying psychology, it's all, you're really trained a lot of times to never kind of look at yourself, right? Never self-diagnose or anything like that. But having friends is such a personal thing. And there's such... You're right, a mental health problem, a friend recession. So I think it's really important that we really lay out how beneficial having friends are. And I know that sounds like such a, silly thing to say because yes, friends are beneficial, but mental health specifically, especially if you're in a partnership, your spouse, whether it be same-sex partner, opposite-sex partner, it doesn't matter. You have to practice open and honest communication. And it's not like that toxic masculinity we were just talking about. It's not bravado. It's open and honest communication because that's how successful relationships work. And having friends allows you to practice that before kind of the big game with your partner or spouse. And, you said, Derek, that, men oftentimes have, my dog died, my grandmother died, and they don't show emotions. Well, men need to express emotions. I think that's a huge mental health issue as men hold everything in, and it becomes again toxic, positive and negative life circumstances. I mean, we've experienced loss as the three friends of ours. We've experienced joy and all those things, and we've shared those as friends, and it's been great. And it just definitely fights isolation, especially during the pandemic. This podcast was a outgrowth of that need for fighting isolation and coming together during that time.
But I also think that there's a level that you hit when you share something emotional or deeper. Is like, yes, when you have acquaintances and you have like a certain level of friendships, there are like people that you share information with, like I did this or we have a hobby together. It's like when you start sharing your feelings and emotions, like that's that deeper, richer level of friendship that I think is so rewarding and fulfilling and kind of gives that to you. And so I know when you have a new friend, it's just all kind of fluffy stuff until you have those friends that are like lifelong friends or deeper friends. And so like that level of friendship is just so much more rewarding. And I think we crave that kind of connection. But like when you're first hanging out with people or you have like a work acquaintance, you're not going to be like, hey, I'm really sad sometimes. Like this is really hard or being vulnerable, with something like that. You have to be, we're at work, we're professional, we're whatever. It's like, I think that, the three of us too, having friends where we could say the hard things that we're going through. So during the pandemic, we all were going through really hard things. Yeah. I lost my dad. We're all going through the pandemic together. Yeah. It was just a crazy time. And I think that's just so important to have people that you can share that next level down.
Yeah, absolutely.
We did a podcast on communication styles, and there's like all these levels of communication. Hopes and dreams and feelings. I thought that's a vulnerable, hard thing to share.
Right.
Yeah.
And so pushing yourself to share that with people, I think, is so rewarding.
Men and men and their negative emotions often get most of the play, right? The idea that like we're rough and tough and stuff that's toxic. But there's that word intimacy we mentioned earlier. And intimacy is not a word for cisgender straight men to be afraid of. It's not. Intimacy does not just mean romantic partner or sexual partner. What it means is a friendship or closeness. That's the definition of intimacy. Yeah. It has nothing to do with romantic love. And the intimacy between male friends, and this is something, we learned, I think, Derek and I don't want to speak for your experiences, but being in that fraternity aspect, like you are tight with those guys. right? And there's that bond there, right? And it is a form of intimacy, and it's needed for positive mental wellness to be able to have that intimacy. It's a safety net, right? And finally, sometimes men need to vent, and women do it often, right? They again, I'd hate to get into that stereotypical, but there's always a kernel of truth in a bucket of platitudes. Men need to vent sometimes, and we need to talk. And Derek, I know we've talked and vented about hard things we were going through. Ian too. We need to do this because we don't want to swallow our feelings, because what that does is it creates more problems. So all these things really contribute to the importance of having stable friendships for an improvement in male mental health. And that's really important. I don't think it gets talked enough out there in the world. And I'm glad that we're doing this and sharing that with our audience.
No, I think one thing to touch on what you were just saying too, it's always important to have a sounding board, right? Jay, sometimes you don't want to go to your spouse with the problem that you're having. Sometimes you need to know if something actually you're going to say to your spouse is a good idea or not, right? So, or a situation at work, right, that maybe they would have a different perspective on. It's always good to also... you also parallel to your peers, right? It's almost kind of like also somewhat peer evaluation, which is healthy in a lot of regards. It's not like using your friend, but it's also, am I crazy here? Right? It gives you kind of that baseline of, but something too I wanted to go back to, and we say it's a toxic trait sometimes, but toughness doesn't have to be you're cold and you're afraid of intimacy either. Toughness can mean grit. Toughness can mean you're going to persevere through things, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be seen as something as toxic too. So I think that you could be all these things and you could still be quote unquote tough. I think that toughness as a man is being kind of like redefined. And I think that someone is there for their friends and is there for their coworkers and their spouse. Actually, you got to be tough to be balancing all of that.
Yes. Very true.
Right?
Very true.
Oh, yeah. And I also thought it's worth mentioning with venting is that sometimes people just need to vent and they don't need the problem solved.
Yes.
It's like sometimes I just want to, they just need to tell you this is the problem I have, and not as a friend, you just go like, oh, wow, that, sometimes I've heard the strategy being acknowledging the suck.
Oh, yes.
Of like, yes, that sucks. Oh, that's horrible.
Yes.
Damn, man, that's got to be tough.
I'm sorry.
Instead of, hey, have you tried this? Actually, I'm a problem. Obviously, I thought of things you haven't thought of.
Yeah.
So when someone's venting, I think that's everyone needs that. Sometimes you gotta let things out.
Man,
I like you said, Derek, with the am I crazy?
Yes.
Am I crazy or is this? It helps to have validation.
I have struggled with being that person for my spouse. I always want to help Rachel with her problems. I want to help work through it. And sometimes I just really have a hard time shutting up and listening. And I acknowledge that this is a public space. So I do have to put that out there. I have such a hard time with that, but having the opportunity to practice those skills with someone else, right? A friend is important. So you have to make friends. So Ian, we got to make friends. How do we make friends?
Yeah. So I thought, we've mentioned all the reasons why it's tough. So I thought it was a good time to outline some of the tips and strategies we found for making friends as an adult. One of the top ones, I think that social media and cell phones are like the antithesis of close friendships. Is that these, social media, when, you see all these people, you might think that you're still close to them. Or, that suddenly you're connected to everybody you've ever met on a Facebook or on some kind of social media. And that can be tough because it seems like everyone has a perfect life. Like every photo is only the best angle of them and all of their success. I feel like sometimes then you actually hang out and it's like, oh, here's what's really going down. It's like, all right, that's what I was waiting for. Yeah, on Facebook, you'd think everything's going just amazingly. And then when you actually get that time to be in person together, that in-person time is so much more important. And I feel like it's changed the level of friendships I've had with folks.
Nice.
Then the next one, I go hobbies. So I feel like that is such a popular one. And I've always had music or acting or, Derek, I think you have Nerf.
Yeah.
Jay, I don't know if you do gardening clubs or something, but
do not do gardening clubs. I could.
Sure
I theoretically could. I spend most of my summers up in New Hampshire at a pond making sure little kids don't kill each other. But that would be nice. That would be nice.
Then I thought, common interests are a big one too. It's like if you have acquaintances or something starting to get talking about cars, it's a big one with guys. You know, recently I had my dog puke in my car. I don't know how to clean it. I know when it gets summertime. So, car guys, if you have a tip of a way to get that smell out of a car, that would be much appreciated.
Buy a new car.
Right? Pretty much, right? Or home improvement. I mean, just you find something to start talking with people. It's like I feel like those kind of common interests is always, you know, a good way to start a friendship with someone. Then the next strategy I found, and I really enjoy video games. So some of them are ways that I, you know, have kindled old friendships. And someone I haven't hung out with for a while. I found games, you know, Valheim is one that's on Steam that I loved. Just going because it's a time to play a game and do something distracting, but also you're talking and chatting while you're doing it. And so, you know, it always kind of starts with like, oh, how's life? How's everything? But then by hour 2, you're getting deep.
Yep.
It's like when there's nothing to, you know, when the game's getting boring, I feel like I've had some deep conversations on video games and really just felt like friendships rekindle over just like hanging out over Minecraft or something. I played virtual mini golf with someone too. Just keep friendships going to kind of rekindle someone that wasn't really a friend in my life anymore. They're remote. They're far away. So some of those friends I felt like I lost, I got back because I would go play video games with them.
It's like a 21st century pen pal.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I think it's a good way to reach out. And I don't think I do phone calls that much, but like I feel like some people used to call up a friend and just start talking and say, hey, how are things? And let's just catch up. I don't feel like I do that do you guys do that with people on the phone? Just like call an old male friend and talk?
Sometimes. I find that my commutes are my favorite time to do that. Like there's a couple friends of friends that I had that I had met through buddies in college. And, you know, there are just some that I will have common interests with too. And I just pick up the phone and say, oh my God, I had a tough day at work, and I could just blow off some steam with them on the way home. And it's always good to just tag up for a little bit. I like doing that actually, personally. It's fun. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I mean, like behind the scenes, like we don't just record this podcast. We usually spend about 20 minutes talking and catching up beforehand. And then at the end, when we're done recording, we talk about the episode. It usually spirals into some other conversations. Hey, what are we doing? We're going to go see this movie. We just talked about going to see The Phantom Menace, which is being re-released. You know, this is kind of a, you know, I guess people should start a podcast, and then they can rekindle their old friendships.
Right? That was my next tip, is that, you know, if you can start a podcast, everyone has one. So do it. Go for it. Just an excuse to start talking.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of our big ones too, and I've had this with a couple sets of friends, is like seeing geek movies.
Yeah.
Making a habit of like, oh, we always go see the Fast and Furious movies together. Just have a thing, like a tradition or something, just to get out and have that regular thing of in real life meeting up with people and hanging out. Sports games.
Yep.
I mean, if that's a thing, if you know, are a big football guy or a hockey guy, getting to go out and watch the game at a sports bar or something, that's pretty cool.
There are organizations and clubs too, like to get people outdoors. Like there's like, you know, that are kind of more, also like socially active clubs too, like the Appalachian Mountain Club up here in New England, right? Or you could, you know, you could go like on hikes with people that organize things, or bike rides. I think too there's one in Boston that organizes ski trips, I think, and actually organized athletic games. I'm pretty sure that you could do it as like a young professional people too, that, you know, organizes also social events afterwards as well. So, yeah.
And this one that I know of through Masons, through Freemasonry, it's a charity that we support. It's called Azimuth Check, and it's for veterans with PTSD. And they get them outside and they meet fellow veterans having issues. And so talk about, you know, a couple birds with one stone. You got mental health there, you got making friends there, you got getting outside. It's a great organization. But that's that's making friends. Thanks for listening. We hope this episode was helpful in you finding a new tribe. Friends are so important to our mental health as dads. May your social circle grow like the mighty sequoia.
If you want to find out more about the 3-Dimensional Dads, follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at 3Dimensional Dads. Or email us at 3dimensionaldads@gmail.com. We want to hear from you.
On the next episode of 3-Dimensional Dads, we'll preview the upcoming summertime blockbuster movies of 2024. All this and more on the next episode of 3-Dimensional Dads.
Hello, and welcome to Movie Phone, brought to you by KISS 108. If you know the name of the movie you'd like to see, press 1.